Hi guys, Joachim Reviews here, and welcome to my review of Series 11, Episode 6, Demons of the Punjab. Now, people were really looking forward to this episode, as this is one not written by Chris Chibnall. This is written by Vinay Patel, and he wrote a historical, and again, the historical aspect is what really attracted people towards this episode, because Rosa went down very, very well, and it seems this episode has gone down very, very well as well. So, let's talk about Demons of the Punjab. So, I really did like this episode. I did have a couple issues, and I will go into that later, just when I was watching it. But I thought the first act was great in order to establish what the episode was going to be about. So the story starts off with Yaz and her family. And I really did like that. I really did like seeing Yaz's family again, because they felt a lot more human in this episode, especially her mum. Because I really didn't like her mum at all in Arachnids in the UK, and I even had some people saying that her mum should have died, which I think is unnecessary, but I think that's just a sign of people desiring a bit more impact from her character, but they did feel a lot more natural. I really did enjoy that little exchange from Yaz's nan to Yaz, my favourite granddaughter, and then her sister's just like, hey, I thought that was so funny. I do think the nan should have been introduced for like a scene in Arachnids in the UK, just to establish her prior and maybe just get a bit of a viewer relationship. But she was really fun, Umbrine. So she gives Yaz a watch, and she doesn't want to talk about where the watch comes from, and so she goes to the doctor and basically convinces the doctor a little bit too easily to go back in time, and the doctor's like, okay, 1 hour, which I do think the doctor really would have stuck to if there wasn't malevolent forces, or so it seems, going on in India. So with the actual assassins or demons, the Vijarians, I really liked them in this episode. I've said on this channel multiple times, I really hate it when we always go for the sympathetic villain route. I think Series 10 really overdone that. And the Moffat era really did overplay that. But I really think the sympathetic villains actually worked in this episode, because there was a really nice bait and switch. And it was very natural, and it was because we actually had a actual engaging villain in order to replace the Vijarians in Manish. So we had like a side cast in this episode. So Manish was played by Hamza Jitua. The young nan Umbrine was played by Amita Suman, and Prem, who was her soon-to-be husband, played by Shane Zaza. I've really probably butchered every pronunciation in there, so I really do apologise. But Shane was in the trailer for series the cast, and I'm pretty sure Amita was as well. So it's very nice to see the payoff of who they are. So I really did like how the story started off with it went in 3 stages. I feel it was stop Umbrine from marrying this guy. Then it was stop the demons in order from interfering with the wedding. And then it was in order to stop Manish. And they realised just what Prem's purpose is in the story. And I really did like that. One of my issues I do have is that when the second act came, I was very struggling with where exactly is this going. And I have heard a few people say it wasn't until the last 10-15 minutes they were properly engaged. And I really can see that. I was engaged with the first act, but with the second act it was just a bit, And when the third act comes, it starts with when the doctor's kidnapped. By the way, that beautiful shot of when they sort of break into the barn, and there's that white light on the doctor, and she's almost frozen. And then she's taken by the Vijarians. I thought that shot was beautiful. And then it's revealed that Prem is actually going to die. And that really added so much stakes to this story. I actually would have... Here's my way of improving engagement. Even though it was a great reveal, I would have had the reveal of Prem dying maybe a bit into the second act, not into the third, because it kind of was a bit waiting around dealing with this wedding, which I thought the wedding was engaging. One thing I was thinking of, kids were probably very bored watching this episode. When I was 8, when Fires of Pompeii came out, I thought that episode was so boring. How wrong I was, of course, because that's a fab episode. Just how like kids watch television like this. So it'd be actually quite interesting if I ever look on Twitter later and people usually pop up saying like what the kids thought. Like there was always that great thing of like when Woman Who Fell to Earth sung down to her, their kid turned to them with that. Doctor Who is the scariest thing I've ever watched. So yeah, it will be interesting. The whole thing with the Vajarians, once again, about being this kind of misunderstood villain, it really kind of was earned, because they were these big, hulking, threatening beasts. And I thought that explanation for why they were sympathetic was perfect, about their home planet being destroyed. I thought that was wonderful. It really kind of made sense for why they would start honouring the dead and people who die on their own after becoming these assassins for millennia, changing their ways. And I just really liked it. And when the bad guy turns out to be Manish, I thought he was completely engaging as well. This episode had this political divide within this intimate story of essentially two brothers. And of course, people on Twitter going, "Oh, Doctor Who's going too political again." Fuck off. It's showing history for what it was and how people in that setting and environment and that period of history were like with each other. You know, again, it's that hostile environment in a sense. And I really respect how the English line was only used once at the beginning of the episode. It's like, don't flaunt that around. I thought that was fine. It gives a little bit of context to the attitudes towards the English at the time. And Vinay Patel knew that's not the story he was wanting to tell here. He wanted to keep this very contained in this very intimate story, and I really do respect that. It was almost heartbreaking to see that sort of departure between Manish and Prem at the end. It really was a powerful scene, I really felt. In terms of like what this episode really reminded me of, the hostile environment of Rosa I spoke about reminded me of The Massacre, just for that really gritty historical story. While this episode, I do feel that within like the darkness there was a twinkle, and it really did remind me of The Crusade. And I'm not sure if it's the exotic environment, but I don't know, just tonally it did remind me of The Crusade. Of course, The Crusade was a straightforward historical, but it was quite fun. And I thought this episode was quite fun. Of course, it gets completely serious in the third act, but you know, you are having fun with this episode. And so I again, it's that callback to 60s Who. I'm a massive fan of 60s Who, so it's more than welcome. So that's a plus from me, really. As with last week's, there's not really that much to talk about this episode. It was just good. It was just very good. Especially that third act was absolutely spectacular. Possibly, I really think maybe the best third act of the entire series. It just rounded things up very, very nicely. Again, let's talk about that scene, the showdown of Prem and Manish. I thought that was very striking. I really loved the detail of the guy on the horse with pointing the gun at Prem. He actually fought within Singapore, which of course was established earlier. It really adds that kind of betrayal and intimate relationship once again. By the way, that Singapore scene with Prem, I thought that looked fantastic. That was a very convincing environment. I really did love the filter they put over. It was realistic. There was lots of smoke or mist, and I really did enjoy the costumes they had as well. That was all fantastically well done. It was very, very well done flashback. And I guess this episode really did help with its settings, like Rosa. You know, you really felt like you were in the setting that they were telling you to be. And with that showdown, I was really thinking, are we going to see him get shot? Are we actually going to hear it? Are they just going to hug it out? Prem puts his hand on Manish's face and Manish just pushes it away. And that shot on the trigger lingered for a while. And of course the sun it then blocks out, so it's not essentially showing the trigger being pulled. It adds that kind of mystery of in a sense, is he going to pull it? Is he not? And then the gunshot goes off, and the doctor, of course, hears it, and the doctor's face drops. It was very sad. It really was. I guess in a sense, one of the saddest deaths of the series so far. I'm not sure if it tops Grace, because of course Grace had a lot of build from her, and it really had some impact to her death. But it was just a very nice story, the story of Prem, and how he essentially died in order to save Umbreen so she could get away, and eventually she ends up in Sheffield. One thing I would have liked is maybe a little context of how she eventually met Yaz's granddad, but maybe the story just didn't need that. Other standouts, Jodie was really fab in this. I've heard a few people say that Jodie's Doctor's best when Chibnall isn't doing the main writing for her, and I will kind of agree. I really loved when she had that stand down with the Vajarians, and she was like, this planet is protected and all that. That was wonderful. She really is a fierce actress. You just need to watch that scene from Broadchurch. Come near my family again and I'll break your fucking face. That she is so intense when she's ordered to be. She's one hell of an actor, and that stand down scene was great. I really did enjoy how the Doctor was wrong again in this episode. A little theme from last week as well, and she was a dick, essentially. You really can see why the Vajarians were pissed off. And they were just basically caught at the wrong time, honouring the body of the holy man, who was set to be essentially the priest. And that reveal, I thought, it was spectacularly done. This is, you're taking the last remnants of our home world, and the Doctor's just like, fuck. And she does respect them, and she does their salute. And of course, that's the Doctor. She very much reminded me bits of Patrick Troughton in this story. It feels like that's something Patrick Troughton would do very well. How he can go from 11 and turn it down to like 4 in an instance. So Jodie and Troughton really have that in common. And I really did see some Troughton as well when she was being the priest for the wedding. That was a very sweet performance and scene. I really did enjoy that. She also gave that really good line, "When I was a man." That was fantastic. You and your jokes, Doctor. I thought that was brilliant. She's such a quirky actor, and she just portrays these lines perfectly. I just thought that was very well done. I've not spoke much about the companions yet, so let's talk about the companions. This, of course, was Yaz's story, and I'll be honest, I'm quite on the fence of whether she got enough development in the story. I think that's kind of a problem with this 3 TARDIS team. It's kind of Yaz kind of gets the back burner. But at least we got more context to who she is and how, she existed, essentially. And exploring her family, it's a good way to do that. Yaz, Mandip Gill really portrayed these great moments of emotion. Anger, being upset, sadness, fury. I feel that she's a fantastic actor, so I really thought that Yaz was great in this episode. It was just really sweet to see her interact with young Umbreen, and of course Umbreen was really creeped out at the start because she didn't know who Yaz was, and she's just being hugged by this stranger. But yeah, I really thought Yaz was fab. Ryan in this episode, I love Ryan. Ryan's, again, probably my favourite. I really love Graham as well, but I think that Graham and Ryan's dynamic is probably my favourite part of this series. They're ball to watch. I really love their kind of almost banter while Yaz is meeting Umbreen for the first time. Well, young Umbreen. They just have some quite funny exchanges. Hannah, they're both just completely confused in the situation. There was that really sweet scene that I felt really aided Yaz's character and Graham's, where Graham starts to talk about, look, don't worry about the wedding now. Look where you are. You are in 1945 in the past. There's your young Nan. Just enjoy the moment and we'll worry about it later. And again, that's kind of the little plot switches as well. It's just enjoying being in this situation, and I love that kind of hen night and stag night, essentially, that they had, which of course was the A doctor saying, "Oh, I never could do this when I was a man." That was great. And I really liked Ryan when he told Manish to cut it out. That he's such like, he looks out for people, Ryan, and I feel that's such a strong point of his character. I really hope that he stays on for series 12. I know Yaz is staying on with Jodie, so I just feel like we need more Ryan, because he's a very integral part. He very much keeps people in check, and I really do like that. Graham supports people, and Yaz allows people to open up. Everybody adds something to this team, and I say every week, and we just see a different part of them, and it's fantastic. So the TARDIS team, I thought, really worked well. I think it would be interesting. Well, actually, just to kind of change things, there was this bit where they split off when they find like the ship, essentially. I kind of thought that Yaz should have gone off with the Doctor. And I think it was Prem there as well. I really thought Yaz maybe should have gone with him, not Ryan. But of course we did get scenes with Yaz as well. But I think it would be nice to maybe just have some more scenes of just the Doctor and Yaz doing stuff. And I think that it would have been fun to see a bit more of Ryan and Graham kind of just hanging out in this episode as well. But what we got of all that was fab, so I can't complain. So the episode really ends after they've essentially not really solved the situation. In fact, the Doctor and the team, they couldn't win. It was more of an episode where they lost, essentially. We have that scene again with old Umbreen and Yaz. It was a very nice, sweet ending to the episode, I guess. I kind of felt like it maybe dragged the feeling a little bit too down, but I really do like how Umbreen was like, you want to know what the watch is about, don't you? And she just went, no, tell me another day. And really that Yaz, she was satisfied with her answer, but maybe she felt like she invaded her nan's privacy, essentially. She's got that kind of dilemma in her head, and she's just, no, tell me another time when you're ready, not by demanding it from her nan. And I thought that was a really lovely detail. I thought Vinay Patel really managed to portray Yaz's nan in this very nice light. And I hope we see more, because again, she should have been established in Arachnids in the UK. I think maybe the production team could have been a bit more harmony with that, but I thought that scene was fab. So the music was absolutely fantastic in this episode. I really enjoyed that sort of almost tribal sound to it. Sagan Akinola really does know how to use drums, and just these very mellow soundtracks that complement the scenes. They don't force emotion, they just complement it, and he's such a breath of fresh air. He's fab, and he does a rendition of the Doctor Who theme at the end. I didn't notice that this first time watching around. It's a very almost Indian style harmony of the Doctor Who theme, and it fits. I think this fits way better than when Rosa did it. I felt like Rosa should have ended with the Doctor Who theme, not with Rise Up, because we'd already had that previously. And this soundtrack at the end of Demons of the Punjab, it just complemented the overall tone of the episode, because Yaz was sad about Prim's death. We are sad about Prim's death. It's just, I don't really know. It just worked, and I'm very happy with how they done it. So overall, with Demons of the Punjab, it's been quite a difficult one to talk about, because it's just one of those things where you just experience emotion watching it, and I really did love it. You feel sympathy for everybody, including the aliens, the Vijarians. So with this episode, I was going to give it a 7 out of 10. Because I thought the episode was enjoyable, but I wasn't really feeling much about it being special up until that third act. And that third act was a complete 10 out of 10. It was spectacular. Again, my favourite third act of this entire series. So I'm going to give this episode a 7.5 out of 10. Just because that second act, I don't really think it kind of notches it up to an 8 out of 10, but I'm really looking forward to rewatching this episode when the Blu-ray comes out. Again, because I've said previously, I kind of feel like I'm losing something when I'm watching these during the week, so I'm just going to give them time and then enjoy the whole series when it's out on Blu-ray, hopefully with that really nice steelbook if they don't end up fucking the artwork up. So, next week, is it season 25 again? Next week's looks so much fun. It really does look like a very quirky 7th Doctor story. Kablam! Even the title. Do you know what? It really sounds like a big finish at 7th Doctor audio when they do like a fun one with him. I'm so looking forward to that. It's got like that robot in the suit that looks exactly like a modernised Greatest Show in the Galaxy bus driver robot. That looks fantastic. I'm very looking forward to this kind of space corporate episode, because I've kind of wanted like Jodie to kind of go against this corporate enemy. I don't know why. I think it's when I saw the guy who played the hotel owner in Arachnids in the UK in the trailer. I thought, oh, he looks like a very good adversary, but of course he turned out to be naff. So we've got like this kind of space corporate episode. I'm really looking forward to it. It looks very bright, colourful. It looks so much fun. I really hope it lives up. And again, this episode maybe wasn't one enjoyable for kids, so maybe next week's it's going to be that kind of balance between what last week's episode was and something that adults can enjoy as well. By the way, last week's is still fantastic. So anyway, Demons of the Punjab are 7.5 out of 10. Next week's up's great as well. The short trailers I think really complement that episode as well, because I'm really intrigued with it. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. Tell me what you thought of Doctor Who tonight, and I hope you have a great week as well. So, see you all later. Bye bye!